Hey everybody, I'm Brian Easton, the author of the Autobiography of a Werewolf Hunter series, and this is Whiskey with the Werewolf Hunter.
I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focus on the pain, the only thing that's real. The needle tears a hole, the old familiar sting. Try to kill it all away.
Welcome back to the Werewolf Bar, everyone. Glad you could make it for our September episode. Now, Dr. T and Tex both have the night off, and that's okay. We've got some great stuff in the works from their segments for the Halloween special coming next month, which, by the way, we started working on like 3 weeks ago already. So always a good time on Halloween, and I would like to pay special attention to that episode. But before I get too far ahead of myself, let's introduce our creature of the night. This is Starward Twofold Australian Whiskey, double grain. Now, I can honestly say that I have never tasted this, nor have I ever tasted an Australian whiskey before. So I've kind of been looking forward to this taste. Amanda Rogers recommended this. I picked up a bottle, did a little research on it, and what they've done is they've created a blended whiskey from two different creatures. One from a malted barley and the other from wheat, both of which are grown there in Australia. So they let these two different whiskeys age separately in their own barrels that had been previously used for wine. And then once they have matured and the experts down under blend the two together. So not only have I never tasted of the Australian whiskey before, I'd also never even heard of a whiskey being done quite that way before. So I think they take pride in the fact that their approach is a little renegade, so to speak, when it comes to whiskey making. So let's give this Aussie its day in court. To you. So this has a really distinctive red wine profile to it. And there's a sweetness there that almost gives it almost a cognac kind of a flavor, which is not unpleasant at all, by the way. It's very smooth, kind of creamy, with an earthy kind of flavor, mid-palate, that complements the fruitiness that's supplied by the wine. I'm a little surprised at how drinkable this is with all the different things that are going on with it and all the different steps that were taken in making it. I think I may be up for a little more tonight. Shout out to Melbourne. As an author, one of the things that I like to do is to see artistic interpretations of my characters, especially in visual form. And to this end, I have commissioned a few paintings in the last couple of years, both traditional media and digital, from various artists. And you may have seen some of these on my Facebook pages. But tonight I thought we'd take a step back and get a closer look at some of these pieces and the artists behind them. Let's start with my most recent, which is the first piece that I have commissioned that did not include Sylvester as its subject. Instead, I had portrait artist extraordinaire Denver Balbaboko from Manila create a canvas for the Beast Prince Lucane, because this werewolf features so prominently in the story of Sylvester and also Michael Winter Fox before him, the progenitor of the feud. After I show you that, then we're just going to roll on and look at some other commissions that I had, well, with credit to the artists following each. But this is the first one that we're going to take a look at. This is the latest one. This is Prince Lou Kane, and we'll give you a better look at that here. So as you can see, Denver did an excellent job of capturing the Beast Prince's cruel features. There's even some red in that eye. I think you can see that. Yeah. I have him wearing the a tiger-skinned cloak. And Denver did his research, and he actually found some... I told him it was going to be a war... I wanted him to be like a warlord. That he was a werewolf, but he also needed him to be featured as a type of European warlord. 16th century, 17th century, something along those lines. And he did a great job of that. You see we've got the saber-toothed tiger skull sitting on the mantle of his fireplace there. And that is a little nod to the fact that it was his skull that would soon, or at least one day, be collected by Michael Winterfox and hang on his warning pole outside of the Hermitage. Down in the corner here we have Denver's, pretty can't see that very well. It's Denver's signature. But the whole feel of this thing is very sinister, I have to tell you. Even, I mean, in person especially, it has a real darkness to it, which is, you know, fitting for the character that this is. And so I can't say enough about Denver and his attention to detail on this. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous painting. And I had intended to have the other Beast Princes commissioned as well. I don't know if I'll do that or not. It seems to be that seems to be quite a bit of things to hang on the wall, and I don't have that much wall space left, to tell you the truth. But I am planning on having him do something with Sylvester and then Michael Winterfox to go along with this. So Prince Lou Kane, the third born of Esau, the one who started the feud way back in ancient days with the ancestors of Michael Winterfox and then, of course, Sylvester. So if you're a regular subscriber to my YouTube channel or to Facebook, you've probably seen this image before. This is one of the first commissions that I did from an artist named Chris Kuchka from the Chicago area. And this is one of the actual paintings that I have, and it is behind glass, which it probably shouldn't be. But that's how I initially framed it, and haven't had the gumption to take it out or change it out. But you notice the way that I wanted the image to be werewolf and werewolf hunter. Nothing else really made any sense, and I've kind of stuck with that theme. So here you have his depiction of Sylvester. And the glass is casting a slight reflection. But you see he's got his belt on his side, he's got his pistol harness on, and he's got his rifle across one shoulder. And in the background we have this crazy looking werewolf, which I really enjoy because he is just absolutely mad looking. And you know, my werewolves, they would certainly fit that category. And then they got the moon behind him. So that was Chris Kuchka, and I'll post his link here. The second artist that I commissioned to do a piece is Steve Otis from Ontario. And he had a very surreal way of painting that drew me to him. And I asked him to do something similar, like Chris had done, featuring the werewolf hunter and werewolf, but in his own unique style. So here we have a very colorful, like fire going on in the background with the moon setting behind the burning trees. Sylvester's face here front and center.
And then down below him we have Mr. Otis's take on the werewolf, snarling atop some rocks. And the background, very orange and inferno-like. And those colors really pop in contrast with the darks in this piece. Really, really happy with how it turned out as well. Now this piece I commissioned through Fiverr.com. And if you don't know what that is a website that has talent from all over the world in graphics and design, even into things like music and video, and they're for hire. All of them are artists for hire. So browsing through that catalog online, I come across this individual from Indonesia who does expert work in landscapes. And he had done some darker material too, so I thought he was a good choice to tap for this one. Now this one is tagged Darkest Woven. And this particular vista is taken from the lineage when Sylvester is in the Himalaya and he runs afoul of the Darkest Woven there in that area. But I always wanted a landscape with Sylvester and a werewolf as a part of it, and this just seemed like the perfect scene to capture. And there's Sylvester wearing his old duster, carrying the Winchester rifle that he won from the old Sikh. And of course up here we've got gigantic Darkest Woven coming from behind a boulder. And there are some bloody tracks in the snow that Sylvester is following. I don't remember the name of the individual who did this because he just went by a username, which I couldn't neither spell nor pronounce. But yeah, this has a place of honor here on the wall. And then the last one that I commissioned of Sylvester and a werewolf was this one. You've probably seen this as well. This was inspired, or my idea for this was inspired by the cover of old pulp magazines, old men's magazines of the 40s, 50s, and 60s, where it always had a male protagonist, sometimes with a knife, usually torn up or bloody, competing with some kind of an enemy, sometimes wild animals, sometimes Nazis. It just depended. And sometimes there was a femme fatale or a damsel in distress. I decided to go with the idea of Tanya in this picture, even though this picture makes no sense according to the book. But the werewolf I styled after the Wolfman in Frank Frazetta's famous painting, Dracula versus the Wolfman. It has the same kind of facial features, and it kind of fit into that same time era that I was talking about. So that seemed to work out. And then Sylvester, I've got him using an accurate depiction of the Bowie knife that he got from Michael, and he's wearing more or less 1950s outdoorsman type wear, you know, with the suspenders and the red flannel down to his brown dungarees, probably Carhartts. Yeah, there was a lot of work that went into this with the lunar background and the moon, almost moonscape back there. Very pleased with this one. And this was done by an artist living in Florence, Italy, and his name is down here at the corner. And I also found him on Fiverr. Fiverr's a good resource. The plate on this one just says The Woodsman.
And there you go. I've had a few others done that I could show you, but I've not been particularly impressed with everything that I've commissioned. So we'll just kind of leave those behind the couch or behind the dresser, wherever they are. But those that I have framed that I showed you, they're in a place of honor on the wall of my office. What I really need is more wall space for future projects. And you know, just because someone writes a book on a series doesn't necessarily mean that he or she remembers everything that they wrote. I find myself returning to my earlier books over and over again to check myself when I'm writing a most recent one, because I really try to maintain a consistency and a coherency throughout the series. And I absolutely hate it when I find something that has slipped by me that messes with that consistency, or when I miss a detail that I never really thought I'd have to check up on. I'll give you an example. In the original autobiography of a werewolf hunter, there is a character named Josafat Baranova, who is a Soviet frontier guardsman, and he is with Sylvester in Siberia hunting the darkest wolven. What I didn't know until years after publication was that according to naming conventions in Belarus culture, Baranova is actually the feminine form of that last name. So here's this, you know, robust, bearded, you know, manly type of Russian guy with basically what is a girl's last name. It should have been Baranov without the A. And like I said, I didn't realize this until the damage was done. I did manage to get it corrected for the omnibus, but I'm afraid that error has followed along and continued to haunt me up until present time. So that was a failed assumption on my part. I don't know how many people caught that error. Hopefully not very many. And given my audience size, I don't think I'm doing myself much harm in telling this story on myself. So let's just keep it between us, okay? Story errors and discrepancies or not, the series leaves a lot of room for imagination, interpretation, and discussion, which is one of the reasons we did Legends of the Werewolf Hunter anthology this time last year that MB Press put out. So we could kind of explore some of those different ideas or options that were just kind of left hanging out there. It also provides fertile soil for an abundance of questions, which is why we have Amanda Asks.
Hi Brian. Hi Internet people. Today I was wondering, since werewolves live such a really long time, do the females ever go through something akin to menopause, where they can no longer have cubs, and if so, does that affect the ability to pass on the beast through the bite? What makes you wonder?
Okay, so that's a great question from Amanda regarding the female wolven and their ability to bear or mark progeny, or pups, as it were. Now, strictly speaking, I would say that there is no such thing as menopause, as we understand it, among the lineage, and that there is no age at which they become incapable through birthmark and birthright of having offspring. Their ability to do so is measured by the same standard as male wolven, wholly independent of their age and totally dependent on their portion of the Therion soul of their particular legacy. We have an excellent example in the third book of what I'm talking about in the form of Anahid Feruza, the goddess of the moon. If we go back to book 3, the lineage, she comes into the witch hamlet in Morocco in a horse-drawn hearse led by Rowena Robin, which is another of the werewolves. And we know from her story that Anahid was marked directly by Ammon, the youngest son of the sons of Esau. And so we are correct to assume then that she has plenty of legacy to go around, being the heir, the offspring of a beast prince. And we see from their story that she is very free with the mark. and that she dispenses it, her portion of the Therion soul, both in birthmark and in birthright. And she bestows it on those that she thinks worthy. She whelps sons and daughters through the provenance of birthright. She even helps supplement the legacy of other wolves through her own. Where most high or noble wolven tend to be stingy or at least very selective in how they dispense, or even if they dispense, a portion of their Therion, Feruza is just the opposite. And it's not like she doesn't realize that in doing this, she is depleting her own legacy, because she receives legacy in repayment from other wolves, highborn wolves, for advice or sponsorship or things like this over a period of hundreds of years, so that she can continue to propagate the lineage through her legacy. So if there's one thing we can say about Anahid Feruza, is that she loves to be a mother. So much so that eventually her ledger runs out of black and into the red until the deficit of her legacy reaches an almost total state of depletion, leaving this grande dame werewolf, this powerful matriarch and child of Aman, wizened and withered in a crone-like state, in this mummified-looking wolf that Sylvester finds in the witch hamlet. And you know, if she hadn't let her credits and debits get away from her, been more mindful of her ledger, if you will, she could have ostensibly continued to whelp and mark new werewolves for, even longer than she did, indefinitely. Anahid Feruza, the goddess of the moon, had a passion to share her legacy, and so much so that it eventually weakened her to a state to where, as the text said, she could barely be called beast at all. Thanks for asking, Amanda. And if you've got a question for Amanda Ask, drop her a line at the email that you saw at the end of her segment. Well, by way of update, the second book in the Winter Fox Journals is on the downward hill to conclusion. I'm well past the midway point, and we have seen so far action in the Great War, in the trenches and out, and he's fighting two separate battles on two separate fronts. And I think you're going to enjoy both the imagery of both the Great War and the monsters that are in store for you. And hopefully the synergy of both as Michael Winterfox is baptized in the fire of war and becomes the certified badass we always knew he was. My hope is that by this time next year, the next book will be live. And like I said at the beginning of the show, we're hoping for a big Halloween episode for you guys next month. We've got several things cooking, and we'll hopefully have some surprises for you. So be sure to hit the subscribe button. But until then, thanks for coming by tonight and for spending some time with us. As always, you can find us on the web at werewolfhunter.com. You can drop me an email at brian@werewolfhunter.com. And until next month, happy hunting and mind the moon.